Hi there, welcome back. Today I'll be doing my June wrap-up, and I did a pretty good month. I think I went through about like 10 books or so, maybe 3 audios, and yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of jump right in. I'll start out with the audio books, and I happened to get a free download of this particular one, which is Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. And this is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I'm going to be referring to some notes I have down here, but it follows a young girl by the name of Nyx, and she lives in a world kind of ruled by the Dear Lord. He's an evil ruler who bargains with members of the society, and usually the bargains don't turn out quite the way people expect. He has a way of twisting things around that are going to be in his favor and resulting in something very cruel to the people of the town. And Nyx, our main character, has been promised to the Dear Lord as a future wife because of a very foolish bargain that her father made before she was even born. She has been in training, actually, since her birth to kill the ruler and hopefully save her society. And this is an enormous burden, enormous pressure on Nyx, and one that she's actually resentful of. And she has a younger sister, and although she loves her dearly, she's also very jealous of the fact that she has a future. She can choose who she wants to marry. There's a life for her. She's not basically doomed to the same future that Nyx has. And she realizes that this is probably almost like a suicide mission in a way, too. But she's a very complex character, which is what I really liked about this particular book. The characters are very deep. There's more to them than just what's on the surface. Our ruler here is named Ignifex. He's often referred to as the Dear Lord, which kind of reminded me of like society in Northern Korea, where they referred to him, the ruler there was the Dear Leader, supposedly loved, but basically feared. And he's a very complex character as well. A lot more to him on the surface, as Nyx comes to find, and soon she is quite drawn to him and torn between her feelings for him and her duty to her family and the kingdom. So it's a very complex book. I really, really enjoyed it, and overall I gave that one 4 stars. The next audiobook I listened to was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Now this is a book I read quite some time ago. I actually rated it already on Goodreads, so it doesn't count in my total book count for the year, but overall this is, of course, a classic dystopian book about a young woman known as Fred. This is not her actual name, but a name given to her. And this is a society where there's declining births, and it is really affecting everything, and very few women are still fertile. So Fred has been considered, they're almost considered like property. They're given over to the commanders of the various republics in the hopes that they will produce a child for the commander and their wife. And they are named based as almost like a possession of that commander. Her particular commander is named Fred, so she is of Fred's possessions. And the interesting thing about this particular dystopian is the fact that it's on the cusp of the society just turning into this. Fred remembers a past life. She remembers the freedom she had. In this society, women aren't even allowed to read. Every movement is controlled. They don't even have signs that have words on them. They have pictures to prevent the women from reading everything. They're not allowed to be educated and everything. But she remembers a past life. She remembers the way the world was. She was married. She had a child. And all of the book is basically a lot of that memory of what was before and of what is now. It is a little slow, I think. I think I probably enjoyed it more the first time as a reread. A little bit more aware of things that maybe I wasn't before, and it seemed a bit slower. Maybe it was the fact that it was an audio in this case rather than a book. Sometimes that slows the story down for you too, but there wasn't a lot of progression in the plot. It was like, this is how it was, this is how it is, this is how it was, this is how it is, and it got a little monotonous for me, but I'd originally given it 4 stars. I'd probably have given it like 3.5 after the reread, but still really worth delving into to see this creative world that Margaret Atwood has built in The Handmaid's Tale, and yeah, definitely one not to be missed. The next audio I listened to was All Our Yesterdays, and this is by Kristen Terrell. And the book is basically a YA time travel book. We follow a woman nicknamed M and her friend Finn as they travel back in time to prevent a time-traveling device from being built in the first place, which ends up basically tearing their world apart. And each time they're thrown back into their own present time, where the world is ravaged by war, and they find themselves locked up in a cell, tortured by this mysterious man known only as the Doctor. Each successive trip, they try something different, and again, end up back there. And it's getting down to, as the story kind of opens, like their one last chance. There's only one last option open to them. I found this sort of really interesting, and the characters nice and complex in the plot. I will say that the only thing that really bothered me was maybe from someone who watches a lot of Doctor Who, there seem to be a lot of paradoxes. I mean, if you use a time-traveling device to travel back in time to destroy a time-traveling device, how is that they're available for you in the future to then go back in the past? And you know what I mean? There's a lot of these little things as you're reading it. And they kind of try to explain it away, but it wasn't enough to my satisfaction. So that kind of threw me for a loop. Like I'm thinking, well, you can't do that because that wouldn't have happened in the first place for you to do that. And yeah, it can kind of blow your mind. But the characters themselves were interesting, and how Em is sort of torn between events from her past and what she must do in the future. For that alone, it was really intriguing, and I gave this one 4 stars. On to the physical books. I read Unravel Me by Tahereh Mafi. This is book 2 in her Shatter Me series. Absolutely love her writing. It is just so poetic, and you get so drawn into this world and the characters. I will say, though, and I'm not going to go into too much with plot, of course, with this, because it is the second book in the series. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the main character, Juliet, who's the one who has the power to kill with her touch. How do I put it? She really annoyed me in this book. Kind of constantly whining about her fate and how she can't be close with anyone. And it got to a point where it was just kind of getting on my nerves. And there's another character in here named Kenji, who she is now with this group of people, including Adam, the love interest from the previous book. Kenji kind of rips into her and just, says, I brought you here in the hopes that you would be part of this community and help fight against the establishment and all this stuff. And he just kind of really just rips into her. And I was just like, yes, someone just straighten her out already. She's got to snap out of it. And it was just kind of so frustrating. It was just great having this other character just say the words that were in my head that just needed to be said. So I love that. Overall, though, I gave this one 4 stars just because it did get, like I said, she got a little bit on my nerves, but the writing is just amazing. I can't wait to read the conclusion to this series. After I finished that one, I did pick up the bind-up Unite Me because I wanted to read Fracture Me, which basically is I would read after reading Unravel Me, because this is Adam's story, and there are events in this book that are directly out of this book. And because of that, there's not a whole lot of new material. I will say that. That brought my rating down. There are some things because you get Adam's perspective of them, but a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the readings from Juliet's journal are directly out of this book. So you're reading the same words that were in here. So not a whole lot of new material, but some interesting points and things from his side of view. So I gave this one 3 stars. Then I picked up Mars Burning by Sydney Swanson. This is book 4 in the Saving Mars series. I was very kindly sent this book from the author. Absolutely loving this series. It's sort of YA, sci-fi / dystopian. Again, being book 4, I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail. Absolutely love the plot, the characters, the world building, everything. I can't say enough about this series. This is one of those books that are like underhyped, definitely going under the radar, and needs to be spread out, the word here. I'm doing my job as best I can because I absolutely love this series. I can't wait to read the next one, which I have downstairs in my basement on the shelf, and it's going to be coming up pretty soon. So I definitely recommend this one. I give this one 5 stars. Then I read a couple manga books for a little light reading. I picked up Blood Lad. This is the #1 bind-up. It contains 2 volumes in it by Yuki Kadama. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. But really pretty cool. The artwork on the cover grabbed my attention right away, and I was curious about it. I had originally started reading it online and decided to pick up a copy and noticed that there were differences between the translations online and the books. I just restarted it. And I liked it a lot better when I restarted it. Maybe it was the translation. I don't know. But we follow this character, Stas. He's a vampire who lives in the demon world, and he's actually a boss, kind of in charge of quite a big territory. He's quite powerful, although he doesn't look like it. He looks like a typical teenager. In fact, he is obsessed with manga and anime and video games and just Japanese culture. And one day, this Japanese girl kind of somehow falls into the demon world. Dek, this guy here, who works for Stas, comes across her and brings him to the boss, and he's like instantly infatuated with her. And then events kind of happen to her where she's actually killed. I mean, you kind of have to... It's not something that's really a big spoiler, because it is sort of on the back here that he's got to... decides to help her and restore her body, and he has to sort of go to the human world to do so, which he's absolutely thrilled because, like I said, he's obsessed with this whole culture and everything, and he wants to see everything firsthand, but he can't just leave his territory unattended. I forgot the name of this character, but this one here, he's sort of a mimic who's recently kind of joined their group, and he ends up being in charge because he can look just like Stas while he's gone, so kind of they think he's still there. But it's really intriguing. There's a lot of humor in it. I absolutely love that about it. Our main character, now I'm forgetting the girl's name too. Fuyumi, I want to say. Fuyumi? That's this girl on the back. She's the one who kind of falls into the demon world. There's some comments. She says, is this going to be like this throughout the whole story? It's like she's talking about the fact that she's almost aware that she's in a book. But things like that, they're just kind of tongue-in-cheek humor. And I love the artwork. Let's see. A couple cute scenes here. Crazy characters. But I like the look of the main character. There. It's basically black and white, but really cute. And I've actually got the second bind-up, which I'll be showing in a haul coming up. So I really enjoyed this one. I'm looking forward to reading more of it. I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read an amazing, humongous bind-up called Another. And this is by Yukito Ayatsuji. And art by Hiro Kiyohara. You know, that's the names, which you can't really see. Maybe you can see them over there. Anyway, this is a bind-up that contains the entire series. There's like 5 books in it. And it follows this Yomiyama Middle School. It's year 3. Let's see if I get this right. 3rd year, class 3. But this particular class is cursed. And every other year or so, kids that are students are dying. And they have these things called the fundamentals, which are like superstitions and things you have to follow, like, you know, don't step on a crack, you'll break your mother's back kind of thing. They have to follow these things or bad stuff happens. And our main character is Koichi Sakakibara. I'll just refer to him as Koichi throughout this little talk here, but he transfers into the school, and he's unfortunately not quite made aware of all of these fundamentals and kind of stumbles and breaks a couple early on. And then he's sort of blamed for the events that sort of follow. Apparently 26 years ago, a rather beloved student died tragically in an accident. And the students of this class 3 decide, including the teacher, decide to keep that person's memory alive by basically pretending they aren't dead, that they are still there, still walking amongst them, still partaking in class. And at the end of the year in the class picture, there's someone there who shouldn't be there. And that is sort of the precursor to all the horror that takes place in this book. It was just really intriguing. It's not super gory kind of horror. It's more that creepiness kind of factor and mystery and ghost-like kind of thing that's going on. And it keeps you mystified throughout. And I love the artwork. Really crisp, clear. Characters had a lot of depth to them. And the background. There's that mysterious girl from the cover. I can't recommend this one enough. I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, I'm looking for more. If anybody knows anything along that line, so you can let me know about kind of horror, creepy, ghost-like manga. I'd love to know about it. But I gave this one 5 stars. Yes, this is the complete Persepolis. This is by Marjani Satrapi. Basically a memoir told in a graphic novel format about... it's like a coming-of-age story of her time growing up in Tehran during the Islamic Revolution and how her life was so different from what it used to be, and how her public life was different from her private life. I mean, they were forced to wear the veil early on. Lots of rights that they had, listening to music, drinking, partying, anything like that was forbidden in this new society, but yet they would kind of behind closed doors still have parties and things, but they always had to be on the watch for even their neighbors that could turn on them. Think Nazi Germany, things along that lines too, where they're so fearful for their own lives that sometimes they would turn on their friends and neighbors. And she goes through quite a bit with losing family members, kind of trying to find herself, to a point where it seems too dangerous for her to remain there. So her parents decide to send her away to school in Austria. And there is where she's sort of trying to find who she truly is, her own identity. And you can see the struggles and the difficulty she has during that period, to the point where almost that she's so homesick that she needs to return. There are some really interesting points that I really enjoyed, where she sort of just has had enough and kind of speaks her mind more, maybe almost dangerously than she should. Like there's a scene in here where she's in class and they're talking about how they need to wear the veil longer to cover more and longer sleeves, and they shouldn't be wearing wide pants. And she just stands up and she's like, I don't understand. This is ridiculous. How is it our responsibility, or the way we dress, that it's our fault that the men don't control themselves, yet the men can wear form-fitting clothes that reveal basically everything, and they're not constricted and everything. There's a point where one time she's running for a bus because she's late, and some soldiers are yelling at her, stop, stop. Finally she's just like, what? I'm late for my bus. Like, why are you running? I'm late for my bus. And she's like, well, when you're running, your bottom it's moving obscenely. And she's like, well, then stop looking at my ass. And I was just like, yes. It's like, why is it the women's fault that the men are, like they said they have to cover their hair because rays of energy or something are coming off and it's enticing the men. It's like, seriously? You can see the frustration and things that she goes through, and how it's just definitely a growth and how she eventually finds who she truly is. And I just really, really enjoyed following her story through here, and I gave this one 5 stars. And the final book I read was also a book I received from the author, and that is Deadlands Harvest by Rachel Ochs. This is the second book in the Deadlands saga, which is a trilogy, a zombie trilogy, sort of loosely based on Dante's Divine Comedy. And the first book took place over a period of 100 days. It was 100 days in Deadland. And it takes us through the 9 levels of hell. And in this one, we come across the 7 deadly sins, and within each of these areas, our main characters, Cash, a young woman office worker, and Clutch, a truck driver, former army soldier, who kind of met after this event sort of erupted around them. They encounter a lot of these sins through other people, and in some cases the people around them and themselves that end up having to kind of commit them in just the course of their lives, and how they can have to try and struggle to retain their humanity amongst this craziness. But there's such good action, but I think what makes this series the best is the characters and the character development. You get so attached to each and every one of them, and just like The Walking Dead, you get attached, you lose them, it's devastating. She pulls no punches with this. You're gonna get the feels. But I really loved everything about this, and again, I gave this one 5 stars. Looking forward to the final one coming out. After I read that, I happened to go online and see that she had a short story available that is called Cracked, and it is a Deadland Saga short story. This features around one of the main characters by the name of Tyler. He's an army soldier that's sort of in charge of the group, and it's just really short. It's only like about 8 pages online. It's free to go to read from her website, and I just really enjoyed it, kind of getting his background story. I won't give it any kind of ratings. It's not even on Goodreads. It's not listed as a book or anything because it is so short, but it's just some interesting information to kind of garner from that main character, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, love that series. Can't recommend that one enough as well. So that's my June wrap up. I've got a lot planned for July. I've got 2 readathons I plan on participating in, one being the Booktubeathon, which Amazingly and luckily falls right when I'm on vacation, so I should be able to get a lot of reading done. And then the week right after that comes the Underhyped readathon hosted by Charlotte over Ramblings of an Elfpire. There's actually a Goodreads group page for that, and if I can, I'll put all the listings down below. But I'll be posting some TBRs for that coming up. I don't know what the goals are around the BookTubeathon yet. I know last year it was like read a classic book, listen to an audio book, a book over 500 pages, basically things like that. So until I know what that is, I can't do a TBR for that. But those will be coming up, and I also have a book haul planned. So be on the lookout for that. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.